Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Basing Techniques. What I want to do is get some icicles on this big guy here. This is from Archvillain. We actually painted this on stream. I'll try and throw a link in the description. There might be a few links in the description with some of the materials and some other also corresponding videos might be fun for you to see. There's a whole lot of areas that I thought could be really interesting, especially on this piece back here. But then you got these guys hanging off here, maybe these things, and of course these little guys right here. I thought it might be pretty fun to have them on those guys. We will use our extra heavy gloss gel. Now you can get this golden, or you could get the Liquitex. I use them both, and they seem to be pretty much exactly the same. Now here's a example of some really small. There you go. I think you can see them right there. A little tiny icicle. There you go. See a little one sitting right there. So many different examples of those here. Let's check this out. From Song of Ice and Fire, lots of icicles there hanging off of these guys, right? And even vehicles. Yes, look at this. Icicles there. There's an icicle right here hanging off the barrel, that T-3485. Look at this, even icicles over here. So it's very multi-use. We use it for water effects. We use it for fire. We use this stuff for quite literally everything. I've even sculpted fur with it when you've got a situation when there's a big old gap or something like that. We're also going to try and do some of our quick crushed glass snow, because I do want to show you the difference between that miniature, the big guy, and these. Now these are from Khurzluk miniatures. These are 3D printed just like the Archvillain one, the giant ice troll king. So we're going to get some snow on these, and we're going to get some snow. This is from the Printing Goes Ever On. I will try to get you some links to these different, the Archvillain, Printing Goes Ever On, and Khurzluk. Now, usually I would do some foliage or something like that, but on these, I'm just literally, I think, going to do the snow. No foliage, just snow. And here's an example of what I mean about the foliage in snow. So these also Song of Ice and Fire right here. You can see we've got our icicles, but we also have some grass, and I thought, here we won't do the grass. We'll just literally pile up some quick snow, because I'd like you to see in the same video anyways the difference between that type of snow and this. Now here, because this had to match previously painted miniatures, I actually had to put this snow effect on it and then paint it. So this is literally the same texture paste that I would use just on my regular bases, but it's painted. So it's a very different type of snow. And actually, a lot of people, they were surprisingly, they really liked it. Now, the downside of this, just like with the other type of snow effects, it can't be at all translucent, can it? And you can't do semi-melted snow with this. So there's a lot of things you just can't do with it. But well, I just want you to see just visually how those look very different from each other. Now, especially since we've got, this somewhat larger eagle right here, because it's a 60mm base. Again, this is from Archvillain. What we're going to do is going to break out our brushes here, and we are going to use that golden acrylics heavy gloss gel for some icicles, and we'll do that next. I think what I'm going to do is probably start on some of these up here, because we would like those to set a little bit before we get down to these, because my hand might bump into those and, oh, shall we say, have a negative effect on them. So over here on the palette, you can see we've got some of that material here. And what I try to do is kind of work it up. Let's see how it's already starting to look like fire here. This is hilarious. So I'm just going to try and pick some out here. I think what I'm going to do is just throw a little bit of my blue tack over here, see if this is going to work to hold this in place. Sliding around more than I thought it was going to. That's better. Now I got a blob of this here. What I'm just going to do is throw some of it out there, kind of act as a bit of a connecting point. And sometimes you just have to kind of sculpt with it a little bit. Now I could have some larger icicles here. especially on this thing here. Here, let's make sure we've got that wrapped. I want to have it actually connected to this too. Sometimes I use a little bit of water. And I see there was a little bit of a hair in there. So what I'm going to do is actually let that sit there for just a sec. It's a little bit like oil paints where you kind of have to be patient with this. And you sort of have to build these things up a little by little. Sometimes it takes multiple applications. You see how we're kind of pulling away at that. See if we can almost try to just, there we go. See, we've almost created a little bit of an icicle right there. Get that stuck on here. Again, sometimes it takes a little bit of finagling. Just want to make sure that's on camera for you. Looks like you can see it. And this stuff does dry clear, rest assured. If you put a huge giant glob on there, it might take longer. You can also do this too. There we go. So nothing says you can't use your fingers. It is important to have different size icicles, I think. Yeah, I don't think you want it to be all exactly the same. And sometimes it's nice to have maybe multiple icicles next to each other. So let me see if I can try and string up a smaller one next to this. That's not quite so small. So it'll just go over here for right now. And again, I can just take my fingers here and just kind of pull down on that. Look, I got another little piece right here. Bam, I'm just going to stick it right over there. Make sure it's stuck to it. And then pull down a nice little piece. And if it just feels like it's too gargantuan, I can just take that off, put it somewhere else. And if I feel like it's just not shaped the way I want it to be, I'll just take it away altogether. And try and get a smaller piece. There we go. It's just looking a little bit gigantic. That's a little more under control. And this is just a craft brush right here. Pennies on the dollar. Nothing super fancy or special or anything like that. Let's see, maybe one over here. Yeah, nothing really complicated about this. And what's nice is you could let these set for 5, 10, 20 minutes and then maybe throw some more on there. It's really easy to tell when these things are drying or setting or whatever the term is you want to use because they just get very clear. The clearer they are, the more set they are. Remember, too, that icicles, they do not melt evenly. It's just water drips, right? They can be very bizarre. I've seen icicles that are practically curved. I've seen them be on weird angles. They get affected by the wind. So that's another thing they're affected by. So if it's windy or whatever, as the water drops are coming down, it will quite literally move those water drops into weird angles. I've seen some bizarre looking icicles. And sometimes they're huge. They are absolutely gigantic. So I was hoping to do something here. See, that's just too much. See, I took some of it away. So I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing here. And you can put as many of these or as little of these as you want. Sometimes, well, pretty much all the time, too much is too much. Sometimes less is just going to be better. It's like anything else with chipping. A lot of those things that can be super fun, sometimes there's just too much of it. And then two, you have to maybe give a reason. Okay, why is there an icicle right there versus not? Is there snow around it that kind of says, all right, that's why it's here? That's why I like the crushed glass snow. And we're talking about that melted snow look, right? Well, it's kind of weird to have icicles right where there's fresh fallen snow, don't you think? So maybe give that a thought when you're thinking about different snow materials. That is why I like the crushed glass, because when you put that on a tree and then you have icicles hanging off of that tree or whatever, you can really make it look like, okay, yeah, there's a reason why these are here, because there's all this melted snow coming off of that tree branch. Okay, here, let me make sure you can see what's happening. I want to make sure that that is attached. That's very important. And I think I can get one attached there. Take some of that away. Put a bit right here. Where is that? Here it is. And sometimes it'll be a little finicky. It just, I don't know why sometimes it is. Sometimes they just go right on there, really easy. And other times they can be a little bit more of a task to get those on there. One never really know why. Maybe sometimes the material's a little bit more dried out, a little tackier. But again, the smaller the icicle is, the faster that's going to set. Just a little something to keep in mind. And what we can do, if you want to add to these, again, we're going to let those sit a little bit more, but you could actually have some very watered down version of this and quite literally add it almost a little bit of drop by drop. It's almost like you're just adding it drop by drop. I'm going to start to think about some icicles on these guys. I just wanted to get the material on here to start with. And then try and just tug that down. The brush, see, as I kind of hit it from either side, see how it kind of makes it sharper, given that icicle look. There we go. Let's make sure that one's actually connected there. Yeah, that's more like it. It was connected on the other side, but not on this side. And we'll keep going here a little bit more. Here. Just gonna turn this carefully. Don't wanna be dropping this. Now, this Archvillain print here, this was all hollow. So it's pretty light. For as big as it is, it's actually pretty darn light. I'm gonna grab that with my hand and pull some of that down. You want to make sure you don't have any sort of paint colors on your hands, or you also want to make sure that your brushes are pretty darn clean, because I've had it before Well, especially on a contrast paints or any sort of ink or whatever. Yeah, I've had some unfortunate incidents where all of a sudden I got some pink snow or some green snow or some really unusual colors of snow. It can happen. It's not fun when it does. So yeah, just you want to make sure you got yourself some clean brushes when you're fixing to do this kind of thing. Now before I forget, I'm just going to thin some of this down so that I have it available to maybe put over some of these guys here. So I'm just putting the water in it, thinning it down. You can do this. It's not going to affect it. If you feel like you need a little color in your icicles, if you want to put a little ink in, like a Killian green is one, was it a contrast paint? I've done that with water effects, and I think if you would like to have something like ice has a little bit of a bluishness to it, that might just be the color to use, I think. So you can, I'm just going to thinning this down here, and it has a very different, it's very soft and smooth. Very soft and smooth. And guess what? We're going to be mixing that crushed glass stuff with this very same material. And see, now I'm quite literally making this the way you would make an actual icicle. See that? That's just it's almost like a water drip hanging off the end of it. And the thinner you make this, the more you can do that. So this is more like, I guess, if you're trying to do dioramas or maybe very small things, something where you're looking for a real detailed icicle-ish type thing. And it does sort of, especially with the end of these things, having that little sharp point on them there, it sort of grips this much thinner material here. So as it was the other goal here was to kind of show you the dual purpose nature of the heavy gloss gel. Well, dual purpose, I mean, it's as a fire. We've used it for so many different things. It's really sensational. I keep finding new ways to use it. So I just want to make sure that that is straight down. That's kind of important. That is very important to make sure that's at least going straight down. All right, I think I got myself another potential icicle thing right here. And I might try and tack it onto this and just make that one a little bigger. Like so. Because I already have part of that icicle, but there we go. That is, that's more like it. Just wanted that one to be a little bigger, a little more dominant. Like we were talking about earlier, right? The icicles of different sizes. Ooh, it's a little too much there. And I don't want to have too much on these guys. Yeah, that was going to be too much of an icicle there. So here's something a bit smaller. Can't see, we kind of pull on either side of it there and just keep stretching that thing down. But remember, gravity is going to do its thing too. So see how this just kind of gets stretched a little bit each time. The brush just grips it a little bit more and tugs that down. Same thing over here. And I can already start to see on some of the first icicles that I did, it's already starting to get a little bit clear, which is nice. Just make sure that, yeah, I wanted that to be a little better shape there. Again, sometimes it just it takes a little bit of finagling. I'm looking for one that's a bit bigger than that. The one I just put on there was too big. Well, if I could get that one to stay on there, that would be just about right. Okay, just trying to get this to stick here. Again, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And there we go. See a nice thin icicle right here. Look at that. And it's one of those things where you just kind of have to do it and practice it. There's no surefire way of doing it. I saved this one over here for last because, well, it's in a bit of a dangerous spot here where I could easily be sticking my hand on it, and I don't want to do that. See, that's right here. There we go. There was just a bit too much. And I can just get that pulled down a little bit. That's good. So we got ice on him, ice on that. Most of these things have some kind of icicles hanging off of them. Not too bad, not too bad at all. And this is all painted with the oils, of course, all on stream. Like I said, if you want to see the how this was all painted, you can just watch that on the Twitch channel. The entire process, start to finish. Wow, that one's it may not be clear, but I tried to move that and it didn't want to move anywhere. This one right here. So, see, that's pretty solid. So you can tell the ones that have been there for a little bit, I can actually go back in, and this is that very watered down version right here. Ooh, I kind of like that one. I don't want to mess with that. Oh, it's already kind of semi-dry though. So think about it like this. You could kind of put part of the icicle on there, give it 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So like, yeah, these are kind of set. So it's very easy to put some of this. Now, what I can also do is I can use an even finer brush like this. I'll take some of that off of there. And is there any other place I would maybe want some? Maybe hanging off of him. I might just throw something in there just so that it looks like it's a liquid of some kind here. Just a little glossy effect. That's all I want to do. That's all I'm looking for is a little bit of a gloss effect. So you can see I can add a little bit more to that now because this one's pretty much set in place. It hasn't turned clear yet, but it's much more solid, so I can add to it a lot easier. Like I said, at first it might be a little bit challenging, but eventually you'll get it figured out. And you should be able to do some really fun icicle effects. Kind of like this. And of course there will be pictures at the end of end of the video, as always, and that usually will give you a decent idea of what things look like. You can also check out my Instagram. I put lots of finished pictures there, pictures of finished pieces. Here, I'm going to add just a little more snow to that. And that's it. Now, maybe that's all we really need here. So I'll make sure you can see that. So what we'll do is, again, we'll use this same material here. We'll also combine it with the crushed glass so that we can do some snow effects. And we'll do our snow effects next. Before we get into our snow effects here, I do want to just review a couple of things. The possibilities with your snow. So this is kind of your standard snow application right here. For the most part, it's just piles of snow. Not so much with the melty snow. You can see our icicles emerging from the outside of it there, where we think it makes sense. But for the most part, it's relatively opaque. I've also got some tutorials where we're combining blood effects with this. I suggest you go check those out too, because this crystalline nature of this lets any kind of blood effects sink down into the snow. It's really incredible. It's also the same thing that makes it a little bit more translucent. Now let's take another look here. Now this was kind of a combination of a few different things. And as you can see, it was really hard to get the melted snow look here. I had to really, really fight to try and get that. Now, here, back to the crushed glass again. Look at this. We combine this with weathering powders to actually create muddy snow. And as you can see here, we've got the snow piled on their backs. Because believe me, when I'm just walking a block or two to the store, and even in a medium snowfall, I look like the abominable snowman. There's all this snow sitting on top of me, wherever, obviously no exposed skin, right? And again, we've got melted snow over here, and then some snow that looks a little bit more fresh fallen. Of course, too, you can also layer the snow. So you can see we did another layer of snow on top of that, and that sort of made it look a little bit like it's less melted over here. That's the flexibility that you get with this. And now there's a couple different types. I think we're going to try and mostly stick with the fine. When you're doing this, you could have, everybody's got masks now, everybody's got gloves now, so you can wear masks and gloves. It's just really difficult for me to do that and be able to talk, obviously, and be able to show you things. So I'm just going to move these guys out of the way here. Again, I'm not going to do any kind of foliage on those. I just want to have some snow on them, I think. Now, this is just a lid to a butter container. Why? Because there's a little rim around here for maybe some water, and I can kind of separate my two elements, my glass over here, and that's going to be the heavy gloss gel over here. There's other things that you can mix in with this, but I just wanted to use a product that we already have out on the table, basically. Now, I also have, this is a little different here. I actually got a very soft, this is a craft brush, so it's 20-30 cents, but it's kind of soft, see? And because I've got these larger areas potentially to cover with the snow, I was kind of hoping that I could sculpt maybe a little bit with it. It's not really something I've done before. I've mostly just taken a brush, slapped it on there, maybe just a small junky brush like this or whatever. But we'll probably have that out there as well for some of our smaller figures. But just wanted to experiment with that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of our heavy gloss gel here. I also have some water here, and I don't really want it to be quite that thick, so I have to soften this up a little bit here. Remember, we did this for those other type of icicles. And you can see it takes a little while to kind of get this going here. Here, let's soften it. Now it's starting to get softer. In fact, I might even make it a little bit softer than that. See how it's kind of changed in consistency a little bit? And 2, I think I need to grab myself a different brush because all of a sudden I got the sense that maybe there was some stuff in there. So I'm going to grab a little more of this then. So we have to kind of do a little bit more here. So I'm saying clean brushes. I keep forgetting that I have not had a chance to really go in with my rubbing alcohol and do some. See that I got some water over there in the corner of that? See, this to me, this is still a little bit too thick. I don't want to soften it too much. If I soften it too much, then it's not really going to hold its shape all that well. So the stuff that I used to use, and you just have to go back and watch older videos, you'll see it's basically a water or a liquid, what is it called? Realistic water, something like that. It's basically a water effects type thing. So I have to make this a little more liquid. What you could do is potentially even pre-mix a bunch of this stuff and put it in, well, see that jar I just squeezed that stuff out in? If you maybe want this to be a little bit thinner, you could mix some up and put it in one of those containers and see how that works too. Yeah, I'm just going to go a little bit thinner with this. So this is kind of a little different approach using this here. A little bit different, and I just want to experiment too. I try to experiment all the time on the videos. If I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, what's the point of making more videos? There's not, because it's just the same thing on a different miniature. We're always using different stuff. Now, I will be getting some of the official new Armored Wolf stuff, because now there's jars, there's labels, there's all the good stuff. There. That's more like the consistency that I was hoping to see. Good enough. Okay. I don't think I'm going to do the big birdie yet. Let's work on Dain here and see how that goes. All right, here's our crushed glass. And you can see we're just kind of separating that, and it's generally better to mix a little bit at the same time. Not a ton of it, just a little bit of it. So we're going to push this over here. And I always have some water over here, so that's why I like to have the water. And now we're going to start to combine these two together. Combine these two guys together here, and let's see what we have. So I'm just going to make sure. Let me, two. That's why I'm using these little temporary containers, because I really don't want to save any of this stuff. I mean, once it's got crushed glass in it, yeah, that's not something you want to fool around with. Now, the more the crushed glass you get in there, it's going to change color. Not change color, it's going to change consistency. It's going to become thicker. See how this gets thicker and thicker as we put more in here. So it's a much thicker consistency. It's also not quite so shiny anymore. So this is more your fresh, powdery snow. More of this, more melted snow. Okay. Oh, let's do our smaller Dain. And you can see we're just going to push this down. We don't want to cover up all of the rock either. Now here I'm just going to have to, we're just going to have to push this stuff all the way down via our brush here. Because there's no way to get it from the other side with this cloak. I'm going to get in a little bit closer here because we don't have quite the gigantic Troll King anymore. There. But you can see I'm trying not to have brush marks in there, because, well, you'll get those. If you're not kind of careful with it, you'll end up with the brush marks, and, well, you don't want that. See this little area here? Potentially a little place for some snow to gather. Now, one thing I noticed with this versus the the other, the water effect stuff, is that if you put it here on the edge, it's less likely to kind of fall over the side. Now, let me show you something real quick here. So you can see how the puffs of snow here are kind of falling over the edge. I mean, that's a good thing because that's kind of how snow would work. However, well, you take too many bites at that apple, it's just going to be quite literally falling over the edge, and then we don't want that. So here, let me just grab a little bit more. Now, yeah, you just want to chuck these containers away. With the crushed glass and everything, nah, you don't. You don't want to be trying to save. There is really nothing to save. Just get rid of them. Now we're going to have to mix some more of this. But you can see how we're trying to let our rock still show just a bit. Here, let's have that snow walk its way up the edge here just a little bit. There we go. So see, it just kind of walks its way up there. Now let's mix some more here. Whoops, I guess I should get some more crushed glass out here too. How's that sound? So I will be painting a ton more figures that need snow effects. So on stream, in videos, and I've done several army painting series that also involve the crushed glass snow and different snow effects like that. And you can always, like I said, put some more glass out there, but it's always best to have just not too much of it. You don't want to have too much of that out there. Well, first of all, if something happens where you spill it or knock it over or do something crazy, well, you haven't lost very much, have you? Like I said, gloves, probably not a bad thing for you. And you can, like I said, you can wear a mask, do all that good stuff. You can wear safety goggles if you wanted to. It's just something you wouldn't want to, like, say, have in your paint water, right? Just make everything disposable when it comes to playing around with the crushed glass. I think that's the one thing that I definitely would say is an all-the-time kind of thing. You just want to take this, chuck it in the garbage. It all dries into basically a solid piece of, well, like a big mass, guess what, of glass. So it's all going to dry. Things like the paper towel, that's why I use paper towels, because I can just chuck that into the garbage and not worry about it. Now, one of the other things I wanted to do with the snow was maybe even, help out our boar here and give him a little extra support. So see, we're getting some snow in here now. And so I'm kind of tapping that down and flattening that a little bit. Okay, let's do this. Again, flattening down that side. And you can see I'm kind of putting it where the goat's feet are. Again, just trying to give him a little bit more support. He is pinned to the base, but a little bit of snow there kind of gives him some nice support. And what happens is you get kind of used to working with this. You kind of get to know the timing of it, just how much pressure you can apply, how much you shouldn't apply. Now see here, that's going to be a little more translucent right there because the snow is very thin. Not a lot of it. And that's what I love about this stuff. Of course, you could take your other, I guess, your fluffy snow effect and drop it over the top of this, but then you're going to lose your crystalline effect. I've done it, I've experimented, and you pretty much lose that really nifty crystalline effect. And I don't know, to me, I really love the effect of the crystals. So just going to throw a little bit more here and maybe some out on the edge of this. And let's see where we're going to have it hang over the edge a little bit like that. See, it's kind of a big, bit puffy and almost kind of hangs down over the edge. That's something that you can do. I mean, again, we could put some more on him and on our on the war pig or whatever, but no, I think we'll leave it as is. Here, I'm going to move this one out of the way. Now, what I wanted to do is have a little bit of this on the tree. Like that. And throw some down here because there's no way I'm gonna have enough of this to do the whole thing, so I'll have to mix some more. And I also wanted some here, again, to kind of act as supports for his feet. Essentially, just to give him a little extra to stand on here. Not a ton of it, but it is sort of like a little bit of a peak there. And you can see there's a little bit of a ridge right here. You can see I kind of flatten that with the brush. And what we want is kind of a little bit of avalanche of snow, right? It just kind of falls down into here. But look at this. Look at how translucent that is. That you'll never be able to get that. I've tried it. I mean, it looks sort of like melted snow, but it's not anything like actual melted snow or anything what it would look like. So again, my suggestion is you try the crushed glass. Again, it's going to be from Armored Wolf, and I will be for sure share when there's an official packaging and everything else, a place to get it. I will certainly be sharing that with you. It just with all of the supply chain things, it was really challenging trying to get the packaging and everything else. All right, we're gonna have to mix a little bit more to finish this off. Let's throw out a bit more here. You always want to close up that container when you're done with it. You don't want that thing open. And you can see how it's kind of resisting, see how crumbly that is. This would be even more like fresh fallen snow right there. So it'd almost be more like icy kind of snow that's been stepped on and whatever. So many more textures you can get with this. It's amazing the difference. Okay, let's start to put some more of this down here. Maybe not going to hold that quite just by the tree there. That's more like it. So you can see how solid that is. More liquid, or if I could put more water in there, or even a little bit more of the heavy gloss gel. Well, that will also change it just a bit, make it a little more translucent. So see, I'm trying to put a little bit of snow on that ledge. Maybe have it go over a little bit. Because I want at least some of the rocks to show up. Don't want to cover those up completely. And this actually was done, the base itself here, that was done actually with Daz air dry clay, believe it or not. And that's one of the basing videos on my Patreon page. It was an experiment. I'd never really used the Daz air dry clay quite in the way I did on this. I even did some sculpting with it down here to mesh the tree in with the base. So that experiment stuff that I was talking about, always doing experiments, constantly experimenting. So here, throw a little bit more of this out here. Okay, let me just get some water into this brush here so that it doesn't get too clogged. And I'm going to maybe take this brush here because I want to experiment. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is a bit softer. I think I need to actually wet that brush to stick in a little bit. Ah, yeah, I think that might have... Nah, see, it's still a little bit hard. I'm not quite getting the soft snow effect that I would like out of that. Interesting. I really thought that would be soft enough to do that, but not quite. Yeah, it's still too hard of a brush there. Interesting. I didn't think it would be, but you never know. You never really know. Here, I gotta mix up some more. Let's do that here. So got some more of this base to do. Okay, I still do have some water here. I've been wondering, do I test this with the flat gel or matte gel? I don't know. See, if you have the gloss gel and you have a little bit more of it or more water, well, then you're probably going to have more of a melted snow look. But if you have the flat, I don't know if that's going to really give you very much of that melted snow look. I'm going to maybe throw a little bit more. That's looking a little watery there. Just going to throw a little bit more of that powder, or the crushed glass, sorry. And actually, I do believe it's going to be in 2 different varieties. This is the fine. There was also an extra fine. Okay, we'll say that's good enough for right now. And then I'm just going to try. See, look, it's so easy to get this down in all those little nooks and crannies. Let's do a nice big area here. And see, we're kind of pushing this around. And it's kind of easier to push it around and kind of be soft with it if you actually have some of it on the brush. That's why I'm going to let that go over here. Yeah. I'm going to see if I can't get a little bit over here again on the where his foot is. And this is the last of my stuff here. So this is pretty much the last we can do. And I might do a little bit up here. And a little bit over here. And I could put an icicle off of this if I really felt like it, or I could have a bit more on the tree here. So again, all of this right in here. There's going to be a bit more on the translucent side right there. Working time on this, it's going to maybe depend on humidity and other such things, but it's not infinite. That's why I don't mix a whole bunch of it, because all of a sudden, if this stuff is partially set and you try moving it around, I don't think that's going to work so well. See, we're pulling the snow up here onto our tree. So it kind of looks like he's maybe perched really on the crest of some mountain or something like that. Yeah, that worked just right. So nothing super fancy here, right? Just showing you a couple of basic materials here. And hopefully this kind of gives you some ideas outside of the usual sort of snow flock and those kind of things. You can use it for vehicles, fantasy things, sci-fi things. It does not matter. Buildings, terrain, depending on how much you want to use on your terrain. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some pictures at the end. We're also going to say, okay, whose miniature is this? Archvillain, like this. Printing goes over on the Dain Ironfoot on the War Pig, and on foot, that was from Khurzluk. And then, of course, the Troll King from Archvillain. So I hope that this is helpful for you. If it is, if you could do the whole, the like and the subscribe and all that kind of good stuff, that obviously really helps the channel here. And it lets me do even more experimental things like this, where we're trying new materials, new combinations of materials. And I would suggest checking out some of the other videos that we've done, where we've got blood effects with the snow and everything else. Think that should be very interesting for you. So thanks again, everybody. I'll catch you on the next video. Much appreciated.